Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Scott Luton and Greg White with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, how we doing?
Supply chain now. I am doing well, Scott. How are you doing? Happy New Year, I guess, because it's still just past a week, right?
It is. It is. And of course, as you know, it may not be everyone's first buzz of the year, but it is the first buzz of the year of
Our first
2024
buzz,
here.
right?
So,
Still working
Greg,
on.
that's right. You're working on it now, maybe. We got a lot of good stuff to get to here today. A lot. I want to say hello to Josh and Eno and Muhammad and everyone else that's joined us. But before I get into, well, I'll tell you what. Let's do this because I want to get one of your favorite tips from
Mm,
visiting Vegas, Greg, in just a minute. But before I
mm.
do, I want to remind everybody the Buzz here live show that comes at you every Monday at 12 noon Eastern time. We discuss a variety of news developments really across global business, certainly global supply chain. We want to hear from you, so give us your take there in the comments. Don't forget to like and to share if you like what you see. And of course, we encourage you to be a part of each and every week's live stream. And if you're catching us on the replay, hey, consider joining us live on LinkedIn or YouTube or some other social media channel of your choosing. We'd love to hear from you. And again, Mondays at 12 noon Eastern time. Okay. So, Greg, now we got that out of the way. You had a big trip to Vegas over the weekend, hanging out with your high rollers, eating some great food. No
Yeah.
telling what. So, Greg, what was one of your favorite highlights?
Well, golly. Well, first of all, we were able to do it in just over 2 nights. I'm a firm believer that any more than 3 nights in Vegas is too much. Hope the Convention and Visitors Bureau doesn't come after me for that. But
Right.
and I think always you have to see the floral atrium or whatever they call it at the Bellagio. They always have really cool stuff. It's like the Rose Parade year round.
Okay.
Um, and this year they had their Christmas theme was the Nutcracker.
Okay.
So it was very cool. It was still up, very cool. Lots of activity. You know, they're getting ready for the Super Bowl there. They just had the Formula One race there. So as always, lots happening in Vegas. It was a little bit chilly, so didn't spend a lot of time by the pool. But
Okay.
yeah, I think
Excellent.
that. I mean, that's one thing you got to see. I went to. It's not even a new casino called Aria. Um, that is just it's hard for me to explain. I've been going to Vegas for a long, long time. When we lived in Phoenix, I mean, we could just
Okay.
jump on a plane for $19 and fly up there. So
Man.
yeah, that was a long time ago, Scott.
Oh,
Aria it's special.
yeah.
It's there's lots of really glitzy and glamorous things, but Aria is elegant, which is not something you usually say about Vegas.
Right.
Glamorous, bright lights, all that sort of thing. But Aria is a very elegant. Even the casino is very
Okay.
elegant.
Well, I am adding that to my list of things. And so, Greg, that's great input. So, to all of y'all out there that may be tuned in listening, one of the questions of the day is
Mm.
what's in your view, what is one thing not to be missed when you visit Vegas, whether for a weekend or a week or what have you? Y'all tune in and let us know your
Yeah, that would be
answers
good.
there.
I think that's a good one.
I do
There's
too.
some real surprises there.
Yes.
Not all of them. I mean, not all of them even casinos or shows or anything like that.
Right. I'm with you. All right. So, Greg, we got a lot to get into here today. I want to start, all y'all out there know we are very passionate about sharing resources with all of y'all out there. And with that said, we want to make sure we mention the most
Oh,
recent
there you go.
edition
With that said,
of With That Said, our almost weekly newsletter. So y'all check that out. Greg, I'll tell you, in this edition,
mm,
which I think was edition number 62. We tackled news from around the globe. We included perspective from a variety of folks, and we talked about some of the latest tips to make better coffee. Now, I shared that mainly because coffee, amongst other things, is one of the things that fuels the global economy and certainly the global supply chain. But a little tip we included on some recent research
hmm
was a best practice that if you to make better coffee, you got to spritz water on your coffee beans before you grind them. And it's supposed to make it less bitter, even if it's whether it's cheap coffee beans or really expensive coffee beans. Have you heard that tip yet?
I haven't, and I wouldn't really do that because I mean, it's really gumming up the grinder. It's bad enough when you have oily beans.
Right,
But
right.
imagine if you added fluid. I mean, water. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that maybe so. Maybe you spritz it on it and let them dry out. But the letting them dry out also causes the flavor to be decreased. So there's all these rules, right?
I know. I just want good coffee that's not too bitter, so I can get my work done and use that coffee buzz in the morning. But anyway, y'all check
You
that
know,
out.
you know what I'm really aware of is how many chemicals are in coffee to make them do the things they do, or whatever, grow faster, whatever. So I am on the hunt for a really good. I don't know if I would call it organic, but at
Yeah.
least non-chemically coffee bean.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna get
Open
an
the tips
update.
there, folks.
Yeah, coffee bean tips, Vegas tips, you name it. Keep them coming in like this one from Cole. Cole says the Sphere in Vegas,
Oh,
which I think is new. Greg, did
did
you
go to
check that
that.
out?
Yes, did go to that. No big shows there while we were there. They had this postcard from Earth thing that was great effects, kind of
Okay.
silly, but great effects. Yeah, and it is a massive. Scott, you were in the Air Force,
Yep.
seen the 270-degree flight simulators that the fighter
Yes.
pilots use.
Yeah.
It's basically a 270-degree simulator over
Man.
10,000 people. I don't even know how much it holds.
Okay. I'm checking that out on our next trip. So Cole and Greg, we're going to check that out. And folks, again, want to encourage y'all, check out With That Said. Let us know what you think. We'd love to get your feedback there. Okay, Greg, from Tomcat, who's been with us on YouTube, he's offering up a Supply Chain Now haiku.
Hmm.
It is Supply Tales Unfold, Scott and Greg's Operations, Logistics Echoes. I like that, Tomcat. Greg. Oh, you never know. You never know. Tomcat, keep
Wow.
that poetry coming.
I'm just glad it wasn't a limerick.
That's right. All right, we got a lot to get into here today. Great to have everyone here. Gino's with us, Cole, as we mentioned, Tomcat, Amanda, and Jasmine from Colorado, where it's cold. Amanda and Catherine behind the scenes. Great to have everybody here. All right, Greg, let's get into our first topic here today. Most folks may not be surprised where we're going to start. We're going to be starting with this update of what's going on in the Red Sea as the ramifications continue to deepen due to attacks on vessels by Houthi rebels. Now, as reported here by Supply Chain Dive, certain ocean shipping lanes, their rates have increased from 55% to 151%, with the biggest increase being, as you might imagine, that Asia to Northern Europe route, right? But that doesn't yet even include all the surcharges that's going to be kicking in this month, ranging from either $500 to $2,700 per container. Now, some shipping companies, Greg, like our friends at Maersk, are announcing that they're going to be extending the diversion of vessels from the Red Sea for a while. Of course, many vessels are being diverted all the way down south and around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, adding a week or more of shipping time and plenty of extra costs. And unfortunately, there's no end in sight with this situation right now. Greg, your thoughts on what we're seeing here?
That's a little bit of opportunism in terms of the cost
Right.
increases, right? Which is not uncommon. And of course, the prices are deeply depressed. We're deeply depressed now. So everybody's trying to make their money back. So that's in a way a shame to see, but I think it's necessary to go around that area. You're a target by going through that area.
That's
It
right.
started out with just shipments to Israel, and it's expanded to pretty much any ship that flies any flag is going to take fire going through there.
That's right.
Yeah, Iran up to Iran things, suborning terrorism. So I don't know what you do about. Well, I don't know what you do about that, but I have a feeling there's somebody that knows what you do about that.
Right.
Well above our pay grade. But in the meantime, you just have to deal with it, right? Or route it the other way around, depending on where it's coming from, right? So
That's right. So we'll keep our finger on the pulse as things continue to unfold. Of course, we're all seeing reports. Many of y'all probably seen the same things that the war in the Middle East could expand with Israel and Lebanon. So we're, as always, praying for cooler heads prevailing and finding a path to regain some of the peace that we had at least back in the summer months. All right, Greg, moving right along. Let's see. Let's talk about the manufacturing industry, one of our favorites around here. Resource. So we if you hear us say resource once, I bet you're going to hear us say resource 17 times on the buzz, because finding good, valuable, credible resources that can really help. Hey, that's an ongoing quest of ours. So I want to share this. Y'all have heard us talk about this before, but we say a lot of acronyms. So I'm going to break it down for a minute here, Greg. The Institute for Supply Management, aka ISM, and its Purchasing Managers Index, aka the PMI, right? So it's a report released each month that gauges a variety of things, especially as to what's going on in the manufacturing industry. So here, recently released in the last couple of days, the PMI for December came in at 47.4%. Now, what does that mean, you ask? Well, Greg, for context, anything below a reading of 50% indicates contraction in the manufacturing industry. And above a 50 means there's economic growth in the same. So the December numbers indicate, with that logic, overall contraction, but a little bit of good news, the number is a bit higher than the previous month.
Right.
A couple of observations from the data from this recent report. New orders were down in December. Input costs for manufacturers are up, things like steel, aluminum, plastics, you name it. And employment in the manufacturing industry was almost flat when you look at December 2022 to December 2023. And we all know that finding talent is one of business leaders' top concerns, especially manufacturing.
Right.
One last thing, Greg, before I get you to comment here. Timothy Fiore, I think is how we pronounce his last name. He's been chair of the Institute for Supply Management's, again, ISM, Manufacturing Business Survey Committee for quite some time. He said that he sees the PMI showing growth starting in March 2024. Now, I might be a little more bearish than he, but Greg, what say you?
That seems awfully quick for a turnaround, doesn't it, Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, possibly. Obviously, consumers have been very resilient. That means we just keep on spending money we don't have. At least in America, that's what it means, as the credit card debt continues to reach a new record almost every week or month. I think the employment is a challenge, but I really think that this lull, the little bit of this lull, and the fact that employment has stayed steady is actually a good thing. They had a lot of open jobs. I think this will motivate manufacturers, maybe manufacturers to start to look seriously at automation, because these new generations, they're not going to come in right into the, what do we call them? Dark, dirty, dangerous, and dull jobs. And manufacturer, unfortunately, is considered one of those. So, people have been staying away in droves from the manufacturing industry for a few years now. And I think it's a great opportunity to mechanize or automate or AI or autonomous or whatever you can do wherever you can do it. That's right. Create some of those efficiencies. And frankly, just keep the lines running, because there just aren't a lot of people that want to get involved in that. We've been defending jobs that should have been automated decades ago anyway in manufacturing in a lot of cases. So it's probably time to go ahead and do that as that generation, mainly baby boomers, exits the workforce at about 10,000 a day.
Wow. Excellent points, Greg. And I agree with you. Automation and tremendous opportunity that continues to give and give and give, especially one of the things that was in with that said over the weekend was a Wall Street Journal article that talked about examples where companies like Kimberly-Clark and Newell are using warehouse robotics more and more. In fact, Kimberly-Clark has back in 2019, if I got these numbers right, and y'all can check it out. And with that said, I think they were leveraging 30 warehouse robots, and that has increased to over 300 across its North American footprint to do, amongst other things, to overcome the hard search for talent. So excellent point there, Greg.
I mean, I think in certain economies, there's still a place for labor. Labor is still less expensive and relatively available in the Far East, for example, but not in the States as much, right?
Yeah. All right. As Eno says, before we move on to our next one, COVID-19, Ukraine-Russia war, Red Sea attacks seems disruption is now a constant in global supply chain. Greg, I think it's been a constant for decades. What do you think?
Yeah, it has. It's just, we hear about it 24/7 now, right?
Right.
We talk about the great toilet paper shortage of 2020, which finally had people, I don't know if we still have those people, interested in or at least aware of the supply chain and if not the intricate complexities, but that it is very complex and can be impacted by a lot of things.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, I think that it's true. I don't know. I wouldn't say these are more disruptive times. It's just that now people give a damn about supply chain, whereas they didn't before, as
uh,
evidenced by many conversations, many very brief conversations at cocktail parties where someone says, "What do you do?" and you say, "You're in supply chain," and you can literally watch their eyes glaze over.
Good stuff. We've all been to some of those cocktail parties the last couple of years, huh? Hey, good stuff. Keep it coming. Keep y'all's comments
Yeah,
coming. Love to hear them. And again, with each of these stories, we include the links where some of our analysis comes from, so y'all can check that out. The last one is shared there by Amanda. All right, so this next story, Greg.
yeah,
I'm really looking forward to getting your take here because we're talking startups. And of course, you're the startup whisperer, is one of the, I think, the names I have coined for one Greg White. So
thank
I
you.
want to share, I'm going to share a couple things here and then we're going to get Greg's take, right? So we're talking about the 2024 startup market. And as y'all know, many of y'all may know, startups are everywhere. Of course, we saw a lot of them, especially a couple years ago in the global supply chain space, right? So neat read from our friends here at Medium, who they gathered a few leaders to comment on the startup environment for 2024, this new year here. So I'm going to cherry pick from some of their predictions, and then we're going to get Greg White's predictions. Okay. So let's see here. A lot of companies are going to die. Startups are going back to the office. Chat bots aren't the next big thing. Quick comment there. I just had my really first practical and successful exchange with a chat bot last week or so. I've
Really?
just missed it myself. Yeah. Let's see here. Bigger and badder cyber attacks are coming, no doubt there. Be prepared for more mergers and acquisitions and mega deals, they say. And then I really do love this one. The human factor will only get more important. Okay, all that is from this Medium article, so y'all check that out. But then, Greg White, as a fellow founder and entrepreneur, but also you're a big investor in startups around the world, coast to coast, you name it. What's your thoughts around what we're going to see in the startup space in 2024?
We're going to see, I can tell you, because while it's becoming news now, it's been prominent in the industry for almost a year now. Remember, about this time last year, we were talking about the banking meltdown. I don't know if everybody remembers that, but Silicon Valley Bank, the largest bank
Right.
in venture capital, let's just say, in technology investment, went belly up, and a number of other banks with them. So it's really been over the course of the last, let's say, 9 to 12 months, that investors are much, much more discerning. The FOMO, fear of missing out, right, where you give unsavory or unethical founders endless amounts of money and they burn it to the ground. Although we have heard about a few companies that have gone completely away after literally getting billions of dollars of investment. Those days are gone, and investors are expecting a line of sight to things like cash flow positive and profitability and things like that. So it's a different world, and there's no doubt. It's funny when you said the mergers and acquisitions and mega deals. I think that should be number one because of what is number one. A lot of companies are going to tail off at very least, or already are, or
Right.
die. And that's a great opportunity to take somebody who has a good team or good product or a good market or any combination of those that's just not working right now and recapitalize that and make good use of that technology to make business of the world, work, consumer experience, whatever, better. So there are a lot of those opportunities because these companies that were high flyers, during the go-go days when everybody was spending other taxpayers' money, they've sort of come back to earth now, and yet they are still good companies. They just couldn't meet or follow up on the expectations set during the COVID days, right?
Right.
So we'll see a lot of that, and it's interesting. I don't think chat bots. I don't think Chat GPT. I don't think any. I don't think LLMs are a big thing. They're very, very cool, and there's a lot of great uses for them, but they're basically administrative tools. right?
Yeah.
As a friend of mine called them, a parlor trick. But they're in generative AI. There are some really good tools that can really make a difference. So it's a good gateway to learning about generative AI and the value and possibilities of it, and then turning it into really and truly valuable, complex problem solving tools.
Okay. All right.
There
Good
you go.
stuff
There's a
there.
dissertation for you.
Take that to the bank from the one and only Gregory S. White. And we look forward to more updates on some of your exploits and ventures later this year, Greg. All right. So, folks, check out that link there. Amanda dropped it here. And Greg, check this out. Josh Goody's talking about micro trends. That's kind of what portion what we were walking through there. He says, check out volcanoes' effect on fishing industries. Well, I'll have to Google that, Greg. But I did hear, let's see, I watched a video over the weekend. Maybe I just listened to it on YouTube. And it was about if Yellowstone, the national park that has, of course, all the geysers and all that stuff, if it really had basically blew up, right, because of all the pressure and
Mm-hmm.
what that would do. Well, that was not a pretty picture, as y'all might imagine here. And, and all the ash and everything. Um,
Oh,
I mean, it would be, and it's within the realm of possibilities, as scientists tell us, Greg. So, but I'm not familiar. I can make some assumptions about volcanoes' effect on fishing industries. Greg, any guesses?
pre-boiled salmon. I don't know.
Oh, Josh, you have to drop us a link
I
there.
don't know what effect it would have. I'm trying to think of where fishing industries are,
Right.
right? And those are ever growing islands, basically in the South China Sea or um, yeah, around Hawaii. That's not a lot of fishing, but
Right.
um,
Well,
we don't have any volcanoes in South Carolina, so it won't affect the shrimp or crabs or clams. Yeah,
thankfully,
yeah.
but Josh, great to have you
I
along
wonder,
here.
can we just get a preview, Josh? Is it good effect or bad effect?
Yeah, drop something in the chat there, Josh.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what more you're thinking there. And again, great to have you here as we kick off the new year of the Buzz and then some. Okay, so Greg, we got one more story that we want to get to here today. Now we're gonna have a little fun with this because we're talking beer, right?
Mm.
Or as my son Ben would say when he was younger, beard. He always liked adding a D at the end there. Interesting article from CNBC that says that not only was 2023 a tough year for beer, but that beer drinking here in the U.S. is at its lowest level in a generation, Greg. That's right. For the first time since 1999, beer shipments are going to come in below 200 million barrels.
Hmm.
And Americans, well, they're for the beer that they are buying, they're doling out more money because they're buying more expensive beer. Did you know that the imported beer? I'm gonna mispronounce this, but Greg, you'll hook me up. Modelo Especial. I say that right, Greg?
Pretty close. Yeah.
Okay, really close. Became the most popular beer in the U.S. in 2023, and that stuff's
Yeah.
not cheap. So, Greg, your thoughts on what we're seeing across not only the beer industry, but maybe the greater beverage industry?
Well, this is all spawned by Bud Light, right? The downturn in Bud Light can't be taken up by any accumulation of beers. Modelo, which is also owned by Budweiser, except in the States where it's licensed to another company. I think it's Constellation Brands or somebody like that. Modelo is the most popular beer, but what happened was the top beer fell off and Modelo went up some, but it still doesn't even closely approach what Bud Light was selling. So this is it's funny. Met a guy in Vegas who worked for Anheuser-Busch, and the impact of it is not just on Anheuser-Busch, it's on the beer industry in general, because I'm guessing that some of those people must have just quit drinking beer. So, and I mean, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
But I think that's really what has happened here. And it has to be. I mean, I'm sure lots of other beers have seen a downturn, but really the only one that could impact the industry singularly is Bud Light, because it was so far and away the most popular beer, at least in America,
Right. Right.
which
Well,
I've never understoed.
at least not since college, right?
I'm not a huge fan. No, I was never a huge fan of the flavor of Bud
Really.
Light. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if we're talking about college days, if it was
Mm.
cheap and cold, it had me, right? But
Yeah,
I
well, I mean, I could tolerate the flavor if it was really cheap beer,
right.
like
That's right.
Wiedemann or Black Label or something. Some of those really awful ones.
Bush Light, Milwaukee's Best, or something that
There
come to
you
my
go.
mind from back in the day, folks.
Yeah. Back
Uh,
when a premium beer was Michelob Light
right. Isn't
or
that crazy?
Michelob, right?
It is
Yeah.
crazy. Folks, check out the article. One of the points that this read from CNBC shares is that sugar, I think they called it sugar first alcoholic beverages have grown dramatically and are cutting into the more
Mm.
of the beer types
So
of
those are the
beverages.
seltzers, things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I've seen something. I've seen countless commercials. Maybe when I'm watching either the NBA or NFL, and it's this tea flavored alcoholic beverages, TNT, because it's got the old track from the band as the backdrop.
AC/DC.
Yeah, yeah. And I just can't. I grew up drinking and love sweet tea. And I hadn't drank hadn't drank sweet tea in decades. But I guess I'm a purist. I can't. I'm not sure how I can wrap my head around alcoholic sweet tea, Greg. I don't know. Does it sound good to you?
Um, yeah, so they have, yeah, I mean, I think it's possible to do, Scott. It is possible
Okay.
to do.
Uh,
So, I love Arnold Palmer and Arnold Palmer, which is sweet tea and lemonade mixed together.
yes.
And it's funny, I would order those at lunch and people would be like, "You drink at lunch?" It's just tea, folks. Just a
It's
little
just
pop of
tea.
caffeine. But they have renamed this drink either a Dirty Arnie
Yeah.
for Arnold Palmer or a
Yep.
John Daly, and basically it is an Arnold Palmer with vodka in it.
Okay.
And on a warm day, one might be tempted.
Hey, again, if it's cheap and cold, we could be tempted. I know I
There
could be
you go.
tempted.
There
Um,
is nothing cheap right now. Oh my
that's
gosh,
true.
it is incredible what you pay for
You're
everything.
you're so right. You're so right. Whether it's grocery store or getting a bite to eat or you name it.
I'm
But
surprised the beer consumption has gone down. I saw an article today. I think it was in Forbes, maybe Insider. I'm not sure, but how much it has gone up to raise a child.
wow,
So forgive me, in 2021 or 2022, it went up 41% because the cost of staples is what's really up of
really?
basic items, right? And then it went up again over 20% the following year. So, and it was already, if you include college,
Right.
pretty costly to raise a child. Yeah, I don't know what the number is these days, but it would be,
About 7 billion, I think.
feels like it. Yeah, I know you could buy a Ferrari for it. I do
Right.
know that.
Well, good stuff, Greg. Before we wrap here, and I tell you, this is an express version. So, folks, hopefully you'll have a great rest of your Monday. But I do want to mention, Greg, today, I think today, and Catherine, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, and please drop the link there in the chat if you would. We published a great episode. Greg, if you remember when we sat down with Sean Olson from Supply Pike, and of course,
Yeah.
Supply Pike is working with suppliers of the big retail behemoths to be able to get what's their line, Greg? Get paid, get better, I think.
Right.
And Sean Olson is an ex Amazon team member and brings some really interesting views and expertise to the table. So y'all check out that podcast we just released. We'll drop it in the chat and make it easier for you. But Greg, that was a great episode. And Sean was, man, I could have spent 3-4 hours talking supply chain, retail, and maybe music with Sean Olson, if you remember
Yeah.
that.
Well, I love the lesson, right? I mean, which is, lots of people are getting into, they want to drop ship, or by the way, don't drop ship, create a product. Drop shipping is not very long lived. I can give you hundreds of examples of that. But they want to get into that Amazon marketplace, and Amazon is, because it's a high volume and a very efficient organization, they're very unforgiving when it comes to your ability to perform, and they have every right to be. And that is precisely what Supply Pike does, is they act as intermediary to make sure you are ready to go when you flip the switch and start selling on, let's just say, Amazon, for argument's
Right.
sake.
Well, really good stuff. We dropped a link there. Y'all take a listen. Let us know what you think. Sean is a bright and enjoyable chat. Great episode we enjoyed creating here for y'all. All right. One last thought before we wrap here. Josh
Yeah.
Goody delivers. He's got a study not covering the North Atlantic, but talking about a variety of other shipping or fishing challenges, I think, related to volcanic
Yeah.
activity. So we're going to check that out. Okay, Gregory.
So he does explain that a little bit. He did
Yeah.
explain that a little bit earlier. Yeah.
Did I miss
He
it? Did I
says
miss that comment?
he says specifically the countries that have Arctic coasts, and a few years ago, there you go. There was a massive dispute between Russia, Canada, and Nordic sea countries, so that would be probably predominantly Norway and
Mm,
Denmark and Sweden, Finland, those areas. Um,
okay.
so um, I guess that article probably gives us some insights, Josh, into
Some of the
huh,
challenges
yeah,
and some of the repercussions that might be coming out from volcanic activity and
yeah,
where we get our fish from. So, Josh, good stuff. Josh got his finger on the pulse. Love
yeah,
it.
he does.
All right, Greg. What a great start to the year. Really, the year didn't just start. We've been cranking it out. I don't think we did stop, but this is the first buzz of the 2024 new year. Looking forward to big things coming. Greg, always a pleasure to knock out these episodes with you.
Likewise.
Uh, we got a big, I tell you, I think our live schedule really starts to kick in, folks. You're going to have to bring a seatbelt
Mm,
to keep up with us. In about 2 or 3 weeks, we got a lot of stuff to get to you, a lot of exciting businesses, dynamic and expert business leaders that are going to be bringing it. And so to get ready for not just best practices, but new innovative practices. Right,
yeah.
Greg?
Hear something, learn something, do something.
Ooh, I like it.
Huh?
Here's something, learn something, do something. Or am
It
I?
sounds much cooler when you say it like that.
Well, folks, whatever it is, y'all know it's on the do, right?
Yeah,
Don't just listen, whether it's us or anyone else out there. Don't just watch. Take something from these conversations here today and do something with it, right,
yeah,
Greg?
yeah, no doubt. Deeds, not words. Scott, can I say that? I know that's your thing.
Please, please. Deeds, not words, folks. It's about action. The new year needs a lot new and more and new action,
Yeah,
right? All right, folks. Thanks for being here. Thanks for an outstanding 2023. Thank you for an exciting 2024. We appreciate all the feedback, all the comments, whether it's on live shows or some emails or social messages we get. Keep the feedback coming, right? We really are grateful for our global community, global ambassadors, global practitioners out there doing big things and sharing it with us. So, with all that said, on behalf of our team here, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, give forward, and be the change that's needed. And we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.